Hello, my friends, followers of Africa World newspaper. You're welcome to this program, Let's Talk Africa. My name is Ukachukwu Okorie, but you can call me Oka. I'm the editor of Africa World newspaper. Africa World newspaper, before I started talking, we have branches in different countries. So I decided to link them up, particularly the countries we are going to talk about now. And I want this to be an interactive program. If you so want to join, you can make contributions, particularly on these countries: Cameroon, Nigeria, Kenya, and Togo. We will look at other countries as time goes on. Africa is a continent of 54 countries, and it's a very big continent, the second largest in the world. If you follow our page, I talked something that relates to this about Africa. That was 2 weeks ago. Today I want to just point out on a few things, especially with the way things are going in Cameroon, Nigeria. With Cameroon, it's all about the issues in southern Cameroon. There's a conflict brewing up there. Scores have been shot dead by the military. There's demand for their independence. We'll look into that briefly. This program wouldn't take that long, so that we'll take things in a nutshell. And I need your contributions. If you contribute very well, I'm going to read it out. There will be no foul language. If you do misbehave on this page, you will be banned. So I want us to look at Africa in a good way. Make your contributions. We'll rub minds on this. We are just exploring new programs on this platform as it's growing and spreading globally. We will be looking at issues that resonate with our followers. So on that, I've just summarized the issue in Cameroon. On Nigeria is on the Biafra struggle. Nigeria just celebrated its 57th independence. 57 years as an independent country from Great Britain on October 1st. That was yesterday. So, and the former Eastern region. If you know about Nigerian history, there was a civil war in Nigeria from 1967 to 1970, and echoes of the civil war still reverberates. So we are going to look in a nutshell, just briefly, towards that, or on that. Then in Kenya, we'll be looking at the elections coming up. Elections was held on August 8th, and the issues, the Supreme Court ruled over the elections that there were issues emanating from that election, hence that a new election will be coming up on the 26th or so, 26th October. So the president took it down his throat, and he's going back to have another election with the opposition leader, Raila Odinga. And in Togo, we've seen a slaver country. Togo is a very small country, rarely unheard of, making news globally. But we've seen issues coming out there. People, Togolese citizens, are agitating. They want political change in their country. And if you know the history of Togo, the current president, Faure, Eyadema, is the son of Nasimbo Eyadema. Nasimbo Eyadema was a cupist. He was involved in the coup that removed Silvio Olympus, the post-independent president of Togo, who was killed in the coup. He was killed, and his corpse found outside the U.S. Embassy in Lome. So we'll look briefly at this, starting with Cameroon. When I come back, and we'll take a look at that. Cameroonians, or those who know about Cameroon and Southern Cameroon issue, you can contribute if you do want to. We'll be back. Yeah, thank you very much. I want to play just briefly 1 minute or two, a broadcast made by the leader of South Cameroonians in the United States, declaring their independence. I mean, his name is Sisiku Ayuk Tabe Julius. I want you to listen. Yeah, it's going to come up, but his broadcast declaring
or Southern Cameroon my God be the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom. You shall live in plenty, meet in our need. And your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God be the watchman of this nation.
Fellow Southern Cameroonians, fellow Ambazonians, today we celebrate our history as a proud people of the British Southern Cameroons, or Southern Cameroons, or better still, the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. We, the people of the Southern Cameroons, we move today to reaffirm our inalienable natural and legal rights to self-determination. I stand here today to tell you that we are once again a free people. Exactly 56 years ago, our forefathers, in whose hands the leadership of our beloved country of the British Southern Cameroons was assigned, our leaders in good faith reunited our people with those they saw as brothers and sisters from the Republic of Cameroon. That union was always intended to be a union of two equals. Unfortunately, what our peace-loving people have experienced ever since is oppression, it's subterfuge, it's discrimination, it's violence, it's intimidation, it's imprisonment, it's forced occupation, it's cultural genocide, and misappropriation of our natural resources by the leaders of the Republic of Cameroon. Our people have endured this inhuman treatment for close to 60 years. It is without doubt a reflection of how the government of the Republic of Cameroon sees our people as no better than slaves. To the government of Mr. Paul Biya, the people of Southern Cameroon are a colonized people, and they have treated us accordingly. By an ugly manipulative scheme in 1972, the leaders of the Republic of Cameroon, they ruined the federal system, which was the foundation on which the so-called union was based. In 1984, the people of Southern Cameroon, they witnessed the President of the Republic of Cameroon, they witnessed Mr. Paul Biya decree the complete annexation of our territory. And in one stroke, the United in the country's name was erased. That United was the last element of that so-called union between our great nation and the Republic of Cameroon. By this deliberate act, Mr. Biya completed the subterfuge of our nation. Mr. Biya's message was very clear and it was simple. By that act, he declared that the union with the people of British Southern Cameroon had expired and that the annexation of our territory was cemented. Today, we stand as a proud people to send a very loud message to the government of the Republic of Cameroon and to the international community that a new dawn has arrived for Southern Cameroons. We, the people of Southern Cameroons, are slaves no more. Not now, not ever again. Today, we reaffirm autonomy over our heritage and over our territory. Our people have sent a clear message to Yaoundé and to the government of the Republic of Cameroon that now is the time to correct the errors of our forefathers. Anyone who had eyes saw. Anyone who had ears heard. They heard what happened on Friday, the 22nd of September 2017. They heard that when our people, they came together in marches across the nation and across the world, they came together in their millions to assert their nationhood. Let this day be a reminder to anyone who doubted the resolve of the courageous people of Southern Cameroon that our mission is clear, our determination is firm. The people of Southern Cameroon will never again be treated with disdain. To the brave and courageous people of Southern Cameroon, let me use this opportunity to thank you. Thank you for your immeasurable sacrifice, for your determination and your willingness to be your brothers and your sisters' keeper. Your sacrifice for your great nation of Southern Cameroon is enormous and your pain is deep. Our hearts are heavy when we witness our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, even our children murdered in cold blood by the colonial forces, the forces that unleash pain on our people.
Well, thank you for listening, patiently listening. This is the leader of the Southern Cameroons, otherwise known as Ambazonians. Before I go further, there's an argument, because many who, if you don't, there's a proverb, an African proverb that says that if you don't know where or when a corpse was buried, if you are asked to exhume the corpse, you could probably start from the feet to exhume the corpse. So I asked our admins to pin an argument from these agitators from the Southern Cameroonians on why they need to, or why they're agitating for their country, or they've decided to announce an independent country yesterday. There's an argument. I'm going to play it so that you get.
Another person who has views of his own is Molanjo Litumbe, who feels that the 1961 reunification was built on a faulty foundation. He was one of the speakers during the colloquium. When George Kelong and I spoke to him, we first wanted to know whether the event in Buea meant anything to him.
The winning members of the World War II designed that to stop any causes of a world war, the United Nations, to which all the nations of the world should belong, should draw up a constitution which would ensure that any complaints are nipped on the bud and there would be no Third World War. So they drew up a constitution which binds all member states who apply and are admitted to the United Nations. One of those states is La République du Cameroon, which had gained independence on 1st of January 1960 and applied and was admitted a member of the United Nations on 20th of September 1960. At the material time, we in Southern Cameroon were still a UN trust territory, firmly under British colonial administration. If we were one country with La République at that time, there would have been no necessity for the UN to come and consult us in a plebiscite on 11th of February 1961 to inquire which big brother we would join, whether La République du Cameroon or Nigeria. This establishes that we were a separate country quite apart from La République du Cameroon.
But we decided to join La République du Cameroon.
When you say we decided, the UN came and asked British Cameroonians, since you cannot raise sufficient resources to mount a sovereign independent government, which of these two suitors would you like to marry, Nigeria or La République du Cameroon? It turned out that the girl said, I would prefer this gentleman. That by itself is not an act of marriage. It is at that point that the man preferred starts initiating the process of matrimony.
No, but you are talking here about a gentleman who already had a status, so the girl naturally comes in and fits into that status.
But the United Nations is the overriding law. And that provides that in order for you to get married, you go before a civil status registrar with witnesses. And if you accept the type of marriage you want, he is the one authorized by law to declare you husband and wife. If you just see a pretty girl from the university and you say, come and stay with me, when we graduate, we can then get married. You can even be performing the customary bedmatics of a married man. But you are not married because you have not gone through the statutory provisions by the Cameroon government that if you want to be married to a woman, go through this process.
But the United Nations endorsed the results of the plebiscite of February 1961.
That was the father of the girl saying, I have heard you, my daughter, as to the choice you wish to make. That is all. The United Nations provides for this in its constitution, Article 102. That says that if a member state of the UN, as La République had been since 20th of September 1960, wishes to join some other territory, he says you are free to do that. But at the point when you are entering the UN, you enter with your international boundaries. If you are going to join some other territory, this will cause a variation of your boundaries, which the UN has got to adjust because the Secretariat is the registry of all independent countries throughout the world.
Molanjo Litumbe, from the way you talk, it's as if you've never recognized this union.
No, I have told them that you could live with a woman, but that does not necessarily mean you are married.
What do you make of the Fumban Conference and the constitution that was adopted later?
When Britain had announced publicly that Nigeria was going to become independent as from 1st of October 1960, the Colonial Office hurriedly prepared a constitution for southern Cameroon because on 1st of October, the governor of Nigeria, Sir James Robertson, was to surrender power to Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. The British government could no longer administer the UN Trust Territory, for which they signed an agreement with the Trusteeship Council on 13th of December 1946. They could not hand it over to the sovereign Nigerian government. So on 12th of September 1960, the Colonial Office in London prepared a special constitution for Southern Cameroon called the Southern Cameroon Order in Council 1960. It was put before the British Parliament in Whitehall in London on 16th of September 1960, and it became law on 1st of October 1960, the day Nigeria was granted independence. That constitution provided for Southern Cameroon the post of Commissioner for Cameroon. He more or less inherited the powers hitherto vested in the expatriate Governor General of Nigeria. They took those powers and vested them on the Commissioner for Cameroon, a white man. The Constitution provided for two houses of parliament, the House of Chiefs and the House of Assembly, an independent judiciary, and several others. But it reserved certain powers to the Colonial Office in London. Those powers were foreign affairs and defense, and to some extent taxation. So until the end of the trust over Southern Cameroon, the government of Dr. John Guffoncha had no constitutional authority to discuss the foreign affairs of Southern Cameroon.
Sir, the union has been on for
53 years.
What if somebody tells you that you are now crying over spilled milk?
No. If you lose your shirt to a thief, and he's been wearing it, and then suddenly you discover it on him, and you say, this is my shirt. He says, but old boy, I've been wearing this shirt. My sweat has been in it. Does that absolve him from the crime of stealing?
But we are talking here about a family in which very few people are disgruntled.
No, I don't know when you talk of very few people are disgruntled. I can assure you that if that position was genuine, what is the problem then that we are discussing about? Cameroon will just come and say, well, if I had to agree with this girl who also loves me, if your analogy is correct, let us get together, draw up ourselves a contract of union, embodying what both of us agree, and file that at the UN. That resolves the matter. That is why my strong recommendation has always been, if La République loves Southern Cameroon, and Southern Cameroon, according to you, the majority love La République du Cameroon, what stops you inviting Southern Cameroons to go into an agreement acceptable to both of them, sign it, and file it at the United Nations? The matter is ended.
Where we stand now, 53 years since the 1961 reunification, where do you think we should go from here?
I am not opposed to La République du Cameroon joining Southern Cameroons. In fact, it's a bigger country, and a bigger country is better to play with. But Amadou Ahidjo and Tafawa Balewa, before the plebiscite, they were summoned at the United Nations. They were asked, supposing these people vote Tafawa Balewa to join Nigeria, what are you going to offer them? Tafawa Balewa said, I have the Eastern region, the Northern region, the Western region, and the federal capital of Lagos, where all these regions converge in parliament. We have been with Southern Cameroon for the past 40 years. If they also wish to join us, they too will be a region with the same perquisites as any of the other regions, and we will all meet in the federal parliament in Lagos. That is my offer. So they said, thank you very much, Alhaji Tafawa Balewa. Alhaji Amadou Bello, what would you do if this Southern Cameroon, following a plebiscite, decide to join you? He said, well, these people are my brothers. We have grown up in different cultural heritage. The British tradition, we French. If they decide to join the independent state of La République du Cameroon, we will discuss the matter with them on the basis of equality. That I envisage creating a federation of two states equal in status. And we will then meet in the federal parliament in Yaoundé. So the UN came here on the 11th of February, 1961, and offered Southern Cameroonians the two alternatives. If you decide to join Nigeria, you will be a region in Nigeria. If you decide to join La République, you will be a federation of two states equal in status. In other words, you will continue to do your own things the way you want. La République will do the things the way they want, and you will meet at the apex in Yaoundé. It was on that basis that the majority of Southern Cameroonians, following the bad experience of the Igbos, because we were administered by Nigeria through Enugu, the Igbos, they held all the top positions. The people in Southern Cameroon had nothing. Even in the market, they controlled it. A woman will want a piece of cloth, they'll just cut it and pay. Where are you going to complain? So that animosity prompted people to vote heavily to join La République, because they had been promised a federation of two states equal in status. Where is the state of Southern Cameroon now? It has been swallowed. How do you do that? When the terms of association had been publicly stated by the president of La République du Cameroon, it is all documentary. Whatever I'm telling you now, I could prove it chapter and verse. It is not of my imagination.
Now that we are talking about national unity and integration, what specifically are the kinds of things that you would propose that should be done now to remedy the situation?
The terms of joining were a power-sharing arrangement, not annexation as we have it. We are like a conquered people. It's like when Hitler overran France in the Second World War. He used Frenchmen to administer the country. So even as it is now, I don't know whether you are a Southern Cameroonian or you come from another part of the country, but he can recruit somebody here and make him prime minister. but he is answerable to him, and he holds office at his pleasure. That is not participating in government. So working for La République du Cameroon, as I saw the masquerade at the colloquium, apart from, I would say, one learned professor, he's not retired. Everyone else who spoke in favor of the status quo is on the payroll of the person who is doing it. We don't have any rights at all. Everything now is rammed down our throat from Yaoundé. That is not the basis on which we joined, and I am alive. I'm telling you this.
Even in this era of decentralization?
What is decentralization when everything emanates from Yaoundé, and then they just tell you, do this, do this? I am about 6-7 years older than the president. I am still alive because I have unfinished work to do. All my contemporaries have ascended to heaven.
And how soon will you complete that work?
You should help me to complete the work in your own best interest. And I would urge you, please, to report what I say faithfully so that all Cameroonians can have it.
That was a very educative one from Litumbe, the old man who saw it all. From his statement, you heard him. He's older than Paul Biya, and he saw all that happened. He gave facts. The plebiscite that happened at the threshold, or when Nigeria got independent with Cameroon. So Cameroon got independent before Nigeria, but the same year, 1960. And these are very powerful arguments. If Southern Cameroon were to be under, if they were under the main Cameroon, I mean the bigger Cameroon, they wouldn't be asked by the United Nations for plebiscites. And you see, this bogs down to what we are going to talk about Africa, what is coming on, what is going on, what is really wrong. I mean, democracy, is it really working for Africa? Why is there problems everywhere? From Cameroon to Nigeria, from Nigeria to Kenya, from Kenya to Togo. Because it's all about distribution of resources, getting people involved, getting your citizens involved. Across the world, it's tough to be African. I mean, go up to the Mediterranean Sea, you see thousands dying yearly just to come to Europe, where there's this proverbial El Dorado that is not even available. Because if things were to be okay in most African countries, there won't be this mass immigration from the continent. And when we talk about this immigration, it's brain drain from Africa. The best are coming out of the continent. You see, virtually in most Western nations, you see Africans doing important jobs, or helping to oil the economy, paying taxes, doing all sorts of work to, I mean, this is modern day slavery, in as much as it is not slavery, I mean, old time slavery per se. But when you are not getting enough, when you are facing a lot of, I mean, different kinds of torture, psychological, economic, social, stigmatization, and sorts. I mean, that is modern day slavery. And Cameroon, we've seen yesterday, not only yesterday, there have been scores are there. You go through the walls of Africa World newspaper, you see the admins have been posting deaths, bullets. You know, they are being shot for what? Agitating for their rights. I mean, I decided to play these two tapes. First, the broadcast by Sisiku Julius Tabe, and this statement from this old informed, intelligent man, Litumbe. giving out the facts and figures on why their demand for independence, it's non-negotiable, it's sacrosanct. I mean, in as much as some Cameroonians may say that they don't have right to do that, but what brought about the agitation, what brings about agitation is always neglect, marginalization. When it's like marriage, when two people are involved in marriage and either side is not enjoying the fruits of marriage, I mean, he or she is going to call for divorce. But in this case, Little Baby, with his narrative, like a very wise African elder, he's used sound narrative, to buttress his points that the father did not sanction the marriage, and so, but it all boils down to marginalization. I mean, if you travel to Cameroon, you will see the difference between the southern part of Cameroon and the northern part of the Cameroon. I mean, Amadou Ahidjo is from the other part of the Cameroon. After Ahidjo, Paul Biya has taken on and dictatorship, long-term rule, and neglecting the area where the bulk of the resources comes from. I mean, on another day we'll look at consequences of colonialism, because these things touches. There's a lot to talk about. Let me read out messages from. Like I said, you can make contributions. Jed Oresi Ombasa said, United Nations means uninvolved. Africa Freedom Voices said we need to be free. We need to free our land. Tambe Peter, okay, watching. Celeste Indo, great initiative there, bro. King Bose, well said, bro. That's like I said, I want this program to be interactive. Let's start talking to ourselves. I mean, Africans. Why are we Africans? We come from the same continent. I mean, whatever it's good, it's good. There's no need, because this dichotomy that the effects of colonialism have continued to bring up in Africa is causing a lot of problem. I mean, most African countries, the problem we do have is this effect of colonialism dichotomy, because the imperialists, the colonial masters made sure that they had to divide the people in order. You see, whereby in a country, power is given to one section of the country as against the other. And you see, because of the fact that some maybe minorities in a multi-ethnic countries, they don't have a say, they don't even have a way, they are dominated, things, policies are rammed down their throat and things like that. This is horrible, it is very bad. Big Smoke says, help to share to the world that the people of Southern Cameroon are being killed now as we speak. Yes, this is what brought about this bringing up Cameroon, because there's killing in Cameroon, and these are armless protesters. I mean, whatever happens, the government of Paul Biya should get the people involved to a round table and discuss. There's very juicy outcome in discussions. I mean, you say you disagree in order to agree, but you have to sit down and talk, because there's a point in the last speaker with what he has said. The argument is very, very strong, and if we are saying Southern Cameroon doesn't have a right, I mean, they wouldn't have been consulted in a plebiscite. You need to understand that prior to the plebiscite, they were under Nigeria. I remember, I wrote it in my book when I was doing a research. You can go check out my book. It's an old book, though, A Political History of Nigeria. That's Nigeria Whips. Southern Cameroon used to be under Nigeria during the NC. The old man talked about it here. NC by Nnamdi Azikiwe. He was in charge of that party. Then they were consulted by United Nations to vote where they are going to go in, whether they are going to join their big brothers, the other Cameroon or Nigeria, and they voted to join Cameroon. But according to the old man, formally it wasn't formalized. I mean, the processes weren't formalized. The United Nations, there's no record to show that everything about the transfer of this part of former Nigeria to Cameroon were formalized. But all these things are politics, and that's why yesterday they decided to declare their independence. But they were met by bullets, and tanks. Scores died, and we do have to look at Cameroon, particularly the issue of Southern Cameroon. That is why we are Africans need to look at issues. You don't just stop being affected with things around your borders, but you need to look beyond to see what's happening in the other, because the world, as the world is moving, is just a global village. And we thank God for bringing the services of the social media so that we can relate more easily. Some of us who doesn't have the financial power, like the CNN and the BBC, we can equally mobilize through this medium and reach out to the wider world. And Africa World Newspaper is a place for different views. Most of our followers are from every part of the world. Yeah, I'm reading out contributions. Jean Philippe Ngapot says, if nothing is done right now in the Southern Cameroon, then not long from now there will be genocide, and the people will take up arms against the army of a foreign country called Cameroon, my country. I strongly condemn their actions there in Southern Cameroon. Marriage is not by force, and the people are resolved to take any option to have their nation free. Thank you for that contribution, Jean Philippe Ngapo. I don't know if I'm getting the pronunciation well. Marceline Nkwan, thanks very much, brother. You have said it all. We need God's intervention in Cameroon. So with that, we're going to wrap up on Cameroon. But you can share this video, send it around. I know a lot of people are watching because this page has followers from every part of the world. It's important you send your message out there. Let people from other parts of the world know what is happening. Let them know that there's killing going on in Southern Cameroon. I mean, armless agitators are being hunted down. They're being, I saw them, the videos are there on Africa World Newspaper. I want you to spread this message, and Africa World Newspaper we support egalitarianism, we support freedom for people. I mean, people should be free. Any government that is shooting armless protestants is not a good government. I mean, if you cannot engage your people in constructive discussion, that is, and anybody who is supporting unnecessary killing by any government or by any group, then the person doesn't deserve to exist. If you will kill me because I have issues with your views, then I think you're a bad person. And this is why Africa World Newspaper, we are sympathizing with Southern Cameroonians. We have an arm in Cameroon. Because of that, I've asked the guys in charge. They are going to change that to southern Cameroon to help them send their message out. For those of you who are from Cameroon, you can go and check out, there's a Facebook page for Africa World News in Cameroon. It's called, I think, Africa World News Cameroon, but it's going to be changed to Southern Cameroon because they need a voice, they need a platform to reach out to the wider world. It's very, very important. Okay, I pronounced your name well, Jean-Paul Ngapo. That's cool. So thank you very much, Cameroonians, for joining up this. I want us to look at Nigeria on the issue of Biafra. Because this Cameroon and Southern Cameroon and Biafra issue, they are, though it's not the same, but they are similar. The struggle is similar. We've seen there was a broadcast by the Nigerian president, Muhammadu Buhari, yesterday. It wasn't reconciliatory. He's been bullish. He was bullish in his broadcast. I mean, that broadcast is resonating among Nigerians. They are talking about it on the future of the country because the issue of Biafra has always come up as a recurring decimal in the politics of Nigeria or Nigerian political history. Like I said, Nigeria was involved in a civil war from 1967 to 1970. And the effects of that civil war still reverberates till this day. Although there are many Nigerians who are not in support of Biafra breaking away, but they are condemning the way the government of the day is going about it, killing, shooting armless Protestants, particularly members of the indigenous people of Biafra, the IPOB, a group that is now at the forefront of championing the realization of Biafra. So we must have to look at that. Why all these things? Anyway, before I summarize with why all these troubles, the issue about Nigeria, it saddens me, it saddens us in Africa world, the way Southern Cameroonians are killed. That's the way to Biafran agitators are killed. I mean, whatever happens, whatever the divergence of opinion, I mean, there's need for a roundtable discussion. I mean, why can't African leaders engage their people in discussion, talk to them? Why do you want to break the country? Why is there protest? Why are you people making the state ungovernable for us? I mean, because there's a proverb, African proverb that says that he who is holding someone on the ground is equally holding himself. In the case of Southern Cameroon, if they are shooting Southern Cameroonians, there's a lot of resources in that Southern Cameroon. The youths, they are going to make things difficult for the central government. I mean, they're not going to let you drill their resources just easily. And you know about the Bakassi. I remember Nigeria had to cede a part of their land to Cameroon. And this land is in Southern Cameroon. And it's very rich in oil. It's called the Bakassi Peninsula. So you look at, and the politics. That's why I said the issue in Cameroon and Nigeria is just a bit intertwined, because during the civil war, I think for 3 days, Paul Biya in Cameroon closed the border, and during the civil war, the Nigerian Biafra civil war, Amadu Ahijo gave the Nigerian forces, the leeway to use that border to attack the Biafrans. So you see, it has a problem. The people living on that part of the regions, the Cameroon and Nigeria, are on bearing the brunt today. There's utter neglect, marginalization, and discrimination against them. And, the effects of this, this decision that was taken at the onset of modern Cameroon and Nigeria is still having effects on today. When looking at the southern Cameroon towns, you see that it lacks development. And in Nigeria, the old eastern region talks about that neglect, serious neglect, and that is why the issue of Biafra becomes a recurring decimal. And the Nigerian leaders, they lose sleep at the mere mention of Biafra, and it's a terrible development in the sense that most Africans, they don't want to look at why their brothers are agitating for this. It's terrible that Africans will just keep quiet and sanction the killing of their fellow Africans over resources. I mean, resources that is God-given, that everyone can benefit from. You see, a part of a country will be benefiting from resources that, I mean, what is there to create an enabling environment? Many of us have traveled, beyond our shores, whereby we have basic amenities, irrespective of the fact that some countries in the Western society don't even have a bit of what we do have in various African countries. Still, their people benefit from key welfare services. I mean, key welfare services. They have basic amenities, housing. They have a shelter, a roof over there. Not many people are interested in who rules or who leads. People are just interested. Most people are interested in the basic things of life. I'm sure if Southern Cameroonians and Biafrans, they have access to shelter, they have access to jobs, they have access to key things that help human living. I mean, they won't be interested in who rules or not. It's all when there's struggle for resources, there's scarcity of things that help human development. Then you start looking at who is leading at all. Then you now know that whoever is leading is a monster, that he doesn't want human progression. So that is it's terrible. It's terrible that there's killings in Cameroon, there's killings in Nigeria, and these same leaders, they don't want to negotiate. They're just being bullish. I mean, is it the fault of the leaders or the people around them? These things are puzzles we need to look at another day. So that's terrible. It's terrible what is happening in Cameroon. It's terrible what is happening in Nigeria. And with that, we look at Kenya. Kenya, an election is coming up again in Kenya between the incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta and the opposition leader Raila Odinga. Whatever happens, I must have to commend the incumbent president. I know there's a division in that country, but we don't want the kind of killings that happened there during the elections that brought about an uninclusive government in which the current opposition leader Raila Odinga became the prime minister, in which Kenya was Kenyan leaders. I mean, Uhuru and his deputy, William Ruto, was arraigned before The Hague. So we don't want that sort of thing again, because killing whatsoever and however it is, I mean, we can have elections. It's just that effects of colonialism still reverberates. We're going to look at that another day, whereby we streamline this discussion and make it and formalize it in a way it's going to be sweet and educative for everyone, and inclusive too. So the election is coming up in Kenya on the 26th of October. Some of you are not aware that there was presidential elections or general elections, including the presidential election on the 8th of August, and the Supreme Court annulled that elections, saying there were flaws in that election, and according to the constitution of Kenya, or maybe from the statements or analysis of, verdict from the Supreme Court, that election has to hold in 60 days, and it was fixed on the 26th October. And the elections are coming up. I've been watching either side, following events. And if you follow Africa World newspaper, you'll be seeing we bring up live reports from different sources, from the opposition view and from the incumbent view, because we support Africa. Anything Africa, we support it. We want the advancement of Africa. We want progress of the continent, because this is a rich continent. I've always said it, a continent of 54 nations. If we have things right, many Africans wouldn't be traveling. They wouldn't be traveling to anywhere, because by the time you travel from Lagos to Cairo to Kinshasa to Johannesburg, Khartoum, Dar es Salaam, Yaoundé, Abidjan, Algiers, Kano, Enugu, Casablanca, Nairobi, Accra. There are many places to travel, and we are different people, nice culture, good food, the resources are there. So why can't we put our acts together? Why can't we put our acts together? So this is the problem. So Kenya is having elections. We wish them well. We don't want killings like it happened before. It's not important. We wouldn't condone killing, however it may go. We commend Uhuru Kenyatta. I must have to commend him for accepting the verdict of the Supreme Court. This shows one thing. Whatever we talk about Kenya, that verdict from the Supreme Court annulling the presidential elections, many of us may not want to talk fully, but me as a vocal editor, I must have to commend the Kenya Supreme Court for that verdict, and equally congratulate the incumbent president there, Uhuru Kenyatta, for accepting that verdict, because many African, look at what is happening in Nigeria, whereby armless protesters are being killed. Look at what is happening in Cameroon, whereby agitators are hunted into detention, killed with reckless abandon. So I know Kenya have their own challenges, but they've shown example. They've set the pace by the Supreme Court annulling a presidential election, and the president accepting to that, and going back to the campaign field, pitching and telling people why they should return him, and why the elections last October 8th wasn't a fluke. So we wish our brothers in Kenya well. We want them to get things organize peacefully the Jubilee coalition and the NASA coalition. We wish you guys well. Yeah, the last elections was Uhuru won by 54.17% to Odinga's 44.94%. So, but we don't know what is going to come up. We are going to be following the elections on the 26th October. So whatever come up is going to be live like it was the last time. And we, all things being equal, we hope that it will come free and fair without bloodshed, and everyone be happy. We want progress in Africa, nothing more. So that will take us to Togo. Finally, some of you may not know much about Togo. Togo is just a slaver country, but it's very important. It's a very important country. A nation is a nation. One second before the Wi-Fi goes off. So Togo is a very important country, and issues are emanating from that West African country. Like I said earlier on, at when it was at the inception of the country, when they got independence from France. I mean, their president was killed. I mean, their president was killed. Their first president, Sylvanus Olympio, was killed, and his body was found outside the United States Embassy. You know, some of us don't know history. This is what our program can be bringing to our viewers. We'll be bringing up the history of Africa and other relevant countries around the world that follow us, but most importantly, Africa. There's a condensed message with Africa World newspaper that unless the hunter gives his account, the story of the hunt will always favor the hunter. Hence, we say things without we fear nobody. We say it as it is. We represent Africa. We are interested in the progress of the continent, and what is happening in Togo. It's really bad. It's terrible, but we have to look at that. It's important to know that the son of Tiene Nasimba Eyadema, I mean, the current president, Faure Eyadema, is a son of the former president who came in through a coup. And he was involved in the killing. I mean, the father of the current president is involved. He was involved in the killing of the first president of Togo. And that's Sylvanus Olympio. I said it before, his body was found outside the US Embassy in 1963 when the coup. It was the first coup, that happened in Africa. And a second coup now brought the late Eyadema at the age of 31. He was involved in the first coup in 1963, and he came back again and led the second coup himself, and that ushered him into power. And now he ruled with iron fist, becoming ruthless and pauperizing the country. And at his death, in 2005, his son, who was minister then, you see, this is the problem in many African countries. But for want of time, on another day, we just pick a topic and dissect it, because some of the problems, or most of the problems African countries are having today are effects of the past. So Faure Nasingbe Eyadema was Minister of Equipment, Mines, Power, Post and Telecommunications when he was appointed president at the death of his father. And he has gone ahead to organize 3 elections in 2005, 2010, and 2015. And in these elections, he had over 60% of the votes, in which most Togolese said he rigged himself in, like his father. This has been happening, and they're tired of him. They want him out of office. You can imagine Olusegun Obasanjo, the former Nigerian president, who was even privy to the guy getting into power at the death of his father. I remember. I watched that. Then Obasanjo has come out openly advising the young man to step down. So you can imagine. So Togolese, we've seen, some of us have seen pictures, clips coming out from Lome. How they've been attacking soldiers who have been acting as goons to the administration. It's just the same thing that happened across African countries. Soldiers that are meant to protect citizens, soldiers that will only shoot when the territorial integrity of the country is under threat. They will be unleashed on the citizen. This is horrible. It's detrimental to the stability of Africa, and this is bad. So, summing up this program, Let's Talk Africa. This is unbecoming of the continent, and we have to rise to start discussing about the progress of Africa. When we see something that is bad, we say it is bad. No matter whose ox is God, no matter whose side there are things you don't take sides about. Killing, unnecessary killing. Killing people who are just having placards and they are being shot. And you see some people, jumping over that. That is it's inhuman. It's un-African. And we should condemn these things in its entirety. We should condemn that. I thank you for listening to me, and who come to this page. I want you to spread this message, spread the message of Africa World newspaper to every part of the world, particularly African continent. We will be picking issues that resonate with our followers, particularly those from Africa. My name is Ukachukwu Okorie. You can call me Oka. I'm the editor of Africa World News. Thank you, and God bless.